The Kentucky Advising Academy is an initiative of the Kentucky Council on Post-Secondary Education. My name is Mitzi Holland, and I'm the director of KAA, and I am joined today by Kelly Norman, who is a program consultant, as well as several folks representing various post-secondary institutions and high schools across Kentucky. And in just a little bit, I will introduce our guests. But for now, as you are joining and we give others time to join, we would like to get to know a little bit about the folks that are with us today. So in the chat, if you would drop in your name, your organization, your title, and then because we are gearing up for Turkey Day next week, what is your favorite Thanksgiving tradition? So again, we appreciate you making time to be with us today. And we are offering ELA and Frisk credit. So join or stay with us through the end, and we will give you details on how you can receive that at the end of our time together. And we will give everyone just a little bit of time here to get in, and then we will get started here in just a minute. Don't forget to drop your name, organization title, and favorite Thanksgiving tradition in the chat. And then as we work through our webinar today, we will do a brief overview of the Kentucky Advising Academy. We will have our panel discussion with our financial aid and literacy representatives. We will share with you some KAA resources that you can take and put to immediate use in focusing on financial aid and literacy. And then we will share with you how you can stay connected to the Kentucky Advising Academy. And then we will also share out some new and exciting information about a post-secondary advising grant that is available. And as always, we will share an evaluation, and that is how you will be able to receive your ELA or Frisk credit. We do value your input on these evaluations, and that is how we can make sure that we are providing the information that you all are asking for. So we will go ahead and move forward. If you are joining the webinar for the first time, the Kentucky Advising Academy exists to support Kentucky educators in providing students equitable access to post-secondary advising for a successful transition from high school to their desired post-secondary path and ultimately their career. And we, as KAA, we do this by providing comprehensive professional learning sessions, both in person and virtual, online resources, and networking opportunities centered around post-secondary advising. We have multiple ways that practitioners can
Tim and I were looking at a
Which,
document that
honestly,
we
I
needed
want to
better.
get all
No,
the energy
actually,
of my mom out.
yeah.
multiple ways that
I don't know what that ghost thing was.
if you all
but
can mute
I
yourself,
haven't seen it
it
since.
would be greatly
But ever since, my
appreciated.
emotions have been draining.
Thank you. We have multiple ways that practitioners can choose to be involved, and the best way to stay informed of all Kentucky Advising Academy offerings is to sign up for our email distribution list because we share important dates and updates about information as well as any in-person and virtual events. So with that being said, we will move into our actual panel discussion, and we are very fortunate to have a wealth of experience with us here today. And I'm going to introduce our folks. I'm going to stop my screen sharing, and Kelly is going to pin these folks as I introduce them and give you a little bit about their background. So first joining us is Miss Cassie Benedict, and Cassie is the Director of Outreach Services with KIA. And Cassie has been in the financial aid and admissions world since graduating from Transylvania University in 2005 and beginning her work in KIA in 2010. Oh. She served in the field for 12 years in Northwest Kentucky before joining the outreach management team. We also have Miss Audrey Price. Audrey graduated from WKU in 2011, and she spent time as a spirit master at WKU, and that's when she realized that she had a passion to help guide students to college and that she wanted to work in higher education. She worked in admissions at WKU for 3 years, then served as an outreach counselor with KIA until 2020. She was assistant director of financial aid at Campbellsville University from 2020 to 2022, and she has been the director of financial aid at Lindsey Wilson College since December of 2022. Our next guest is, and I'm trying to find her on my screen, she disappeared on me, is Miss Sandy Neal. And Sandy has over 35 years of experience as a financial aid administrator and has actively served at the state, regional, and national levels. She has worked at every type of institution from four-year public to proprietary, spending most of her time in the four-year public and private sectors. She's currently at the systems office at KCTCS, and she has served as the president of the Kentucky Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators, the president of the Southern Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators, and has served twice on the National Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators as a member of the board of directors. Miss Autumn Bishop is the Gear Up Kentucky program manager at Augusta Independent. She brings over 5 years of dedicated experience in college access and advising. She's passionate about guiding students and their families. She finds the most rewarding aspect of her role is empowering them in the knowledge and resources needed to make their post-secondary aspirations achievable and affordable. And last but certainly not least is Miss Lenata Reed. Lenata currently serves as Associate Director of Customer Service and Training in the Office of Student Financial Assistance at Northern Kentucky University. Lenata has been at NKU for 6 years, and before her time in the Financial Aid Office, she served as Associate Director of University Connect and Persist, where she assisted with providing coordinated care for students experiencing personal, financial, and/or academic issues throughout the semester. Lenata pursued a career in higher education because of her passion to assist first-generation college students with their college journey. And Lenata brings 13 years experience to our conversation today. So, ladies, thank you so much for joining us. As you all can tell from the brief bios that I shared, we have a wealth of knowledge and experience. So if you have questions concerning financial aid or anything for your students, please, this is the time to ask. We have a very knowledgeable and captive panel here. So for the next hour-ish, we have their attention, and they're here to answer the questions that you have. This is your time, and we certainly want you to have the questions that you have answered. We do have some that are prepared, and we will begin by those. But I will say that if any time you have a question, feel free to raise your hand, or if you want to drop it in the chat, we will get those questions answered. Kelly will be monitoring the chat, and we'll bring up any questions that are dropped in. If we run out of time and don't get all questions answered, keep dropping them in chat, and we will compose an email sent to these panel guests and get their answers and share out with you after the fact. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and start with our first question. And this question is directed to Cassie. And we know that KIA does a lot of outreach to educate students and families on available financial aid and FAFSA completion. So give us just a general overview on the programs that you all have available and how they can support students and families.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mitzi. Great question. We have all kind of a varying array of offerings when it comes to FAFSA support, from as simple as we host Kentucky Goes to College, kygoes-to-college.com website with there is the Better FAFSA portal on there where we keep information where you can print off the information yourself for your students. We print something, we produce and print something called a FAFSA completion guide every year. And so that is a publication that you can order for free, and it walks students and parents through the FAFSA completion process. We have the website kyfafsa.org that walks students and parents step by step through completing the FAFSA. And then we have lots of in-person hands-on help. So our team of outreach counselors, we have 13 outreach counselors across the state and a College Info Roadshow mobile classroom. They travel the state of Kentucky, and they will host FSAID workshops where they will come in and set up FSAIDs, work with your students, with the students' parents. And then once the FAFSA is ready, which, sneak peek, it is, then they will come in and assist with filing FAFSAs with students and parents. And so that can look any way that works for your students, whether that is making appointments and sitting one-on-one with the outreach counselor and letting the student and parent file their FAFSA that way, or some of our outreach staff go into classrooms and they'll sit in a senior English class and go step by step and get the student completed, and then maybe host a parent night where they invite parents to come and get their portion completed. And so if you are not in contact with your KIA outreach counselor, I highly suggest getting in touch with that person, having a relationship with them so that they can always tell you what's going on with KIA, what we have available, how they can support you. A lot of our outreach staff give their cell phone numbers to the parents and the students and offer support, even, sitting on their couch at 9 o'clock at night when the FAFSA opens. And so definitely reach out, kia.com. If you go down to the bottom where it says outreach counselors, you can look up who your person is who represents your community and reach out to them and go ahead and get them scheduled with you, because they're out there and they're great and they're very hardworking and they would love to help you.
Perfect. Thank you, Cassie. I know as a former college and career counselor for a local district, KIA was wonderful and a great partner on so many things, especially when it came to educating students and families on paying for college. So thank you for that. Now, Autumn, let's switch gears just a little bit. And you are in a high school, and you do a lot to work directly with the students. So you are there in the boots on the ground every day. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do in your school to promote financial aid awareness, or what you do to support students and families to educate them on those types of things?
Sure, Mitzi. So the first thing that we start off with is starting early with awareness of financial aid that's available for our students. First and foremost, a lot of that is done through financial aid workshops that we host. That's where we meet with families and students to come into the building. We actually had our first one last night with our senior parents. That's where we just explain the financial aid process, including the types of aid available, whether that's scholarships, grants, loans. We give a broad overview of what there's available. And most of the time, these are themed. I like to make them fun. So we usually have a catchy title like Not Your Average Senior Meeting, where we'll have a taco bar, or Surviving Senior Year for S'more Success. Last night we had s'mores and I almost caught the school on fire. But we always just make it fun. As long as you have a theme, make it engaging and fun, and people get fed, it's usually a pretty good turnout. And as you said, I am in a building full time, so I provide a lot of our one-on-one advising sessions with our students. That's either during their elective courses or during a college and career prep class where I'm meeting with them one-on-one or in small group settings to go over what their career plans are, how they plan to pay for college or certificate program, and just really meet one-on-one with them so they get the individualized attention. Uh, Another way that we meet with families is setting up a booth during our back to school events so you can target families as they pass by, just give out little handouts, whether that's information for their senior student, high school student, or even providing education for our adult family members about continuing their education. That could be scholarships, GED support, post-secondary journeys, anything with like Work Ready Kentucky scholarships. That way they have information to go on about what's available for them for financial aid. And then, of course, with our regular communications, we're emailing parents. I have a Remind app for our class of 2025 for both families and students to be a part of. And as Cassie said, KIA, if you're not partnering with your KIA outreach counselor, please do that. I partner with our KIA rep regularly to provide both FAFSA assistance and just financial aid information. And then, of course, scholarship promotion. We're actively promoting external scholarships through our student-ran school newsletter, Facebook page. Any way that we can push out that information, that's what we give in the best timely way that we can.
Sounds like you all are doing a lot, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Autumn, but I just want to say if you have any like templates or resources that you use that you would be willing to share with our guests today, if you want to send them to me, I will share those out. So, like if you have any documents that they might could steal and use, we always like to, or borrow, I should say. That's always a benefit of education. I feel like everyone is always willing to help each other out. So if you have anything like that, we would certainly love to share it with the folks today. You talked about a lot of the things that you did to educate students and families on scholarship opportunities and things like that. But what are you doing specifically for FAFSA completion? And if you touched on that, I apologize, but
Yeah, so we know that seniors who complete the FAFSA are 84% more likely to immediately enroll in college, which is the goal. Again, awareness. We start talking about FAFSA early with my high school students. They know what it is. They know senior year that is something that they're going to be working on. That's primarily done through our FAFSA workshops. Again, partnering with KAA to help provide one-on-one assistance with our families. They can come into the school to do that. We can meet after hours. I try to give a variety of times, whether if whether someone is coming in the morning, if they work in the evening shift or during the day or after school, we really try to work with our families to meet them where they're at, because not everybody can meet in the evening times, whether they work or have family obligations. So we try to be as flexible with that. We start early with doing FSA IDs. That's our first thing. Last night was our FSA ID creation, or our student aid account that they're now called, just setting up that login information early so that when it is time to file the FAFSA, they're good to go and their accounts are ready to roll. We participate in FAFSA Frenzy and the FAFSA Completion Challenge, which is through KAA, just a friendly competition across the state to win in categories based on percentage of seniors who complete a FAFSA. That really motivates our students to want to get things done. Last year, to help drive our FAFSA completion, I met with my student ambassadors. They chose to rally together and present to our board during a board meeting about their FAFSA incentive. So they wanted to motivate their peers to complete the FAFSA, and their goal was 80% FAFSA completion. So the incentive was, if they met that goal, they wanted to be able to decorate their graduation caps, which is something our school has never done before. So they did a presentation, they presented it, we're very professional, and our board did approve it. And it did help drive our contributors and our student participation through that collective effort, even with some positive peer pressure. I would send out weekly updates with like a thermometer gauging where they were in their goal, and they didn't end up reaching it. And they made school history with one having the highest percentage of FAFSA completion ever in school history, and also getting to decorate their graduation caps. So I always try to make it fun while also relaying the importance of filing their FAFSA. So it's pretty serious here.
that's great, and I love an incentive that means something to the students. And while we all know that completing the FAFSA is a great incentive because of the benefit, sometimes the students don't always see that. So something that's like an immediate incentive that's connected with their school, that's pretty cool. So thank you for sharing that, Autumn. So I'm going to switch gears and talk to our higher ed representatives for just a second. And we'll start with Audrey. Last year, everybody knows about the delay in FAFSA completion, and colleges were getting financial aid packages out, or aid offers out to students a lot later. No fault of any college or any persons, but that just was the reality. And we know that that may happen again this year too. So can you speak to how students and families can begin weighing their college options without a complete offer package? So we'll start with Audrey, and then Lenata, I'll ask if you could kind of weigh in from the public institutions perspective. Audrey's representing the private colleges today, and then Lenata will be representing the public institutions.
Thank you. First, the announcement came out yesterday that the beta testing is open for any student to file their FAFSA today. And if they do file now, they don't have to refile the FAFSA, like this is it, this is their FAFSA. But colleges have in place estimates already. We've already provided estimates last year when we knew the delay was going to happen, and we just assumed it was going to happen this year, and it has. So I would encourage every student to take your tours of your colleges, work closely with the admissions office, and oftentimes admissions and financial aid work hand in hand, especially at private colleges. And we are providing estimates to students that typically are very close, if not identical or better, once the real FAFSA loads in and we get them a real aid offer. But estimates can be provided. Oftentimes the merit awards are published anyway, and it's based off of a GPA and an ACT score. So something that we have encouraged students to use and we're using as part of building our estimates is to guide students to the federal student aid estimator, and it uses actual information that then the student shares their result, the SAI, with us, and then we create that estimate. Now, we press that it is an estimate because until we have the real ICER and the real FAFSA, we're not gonna, give information that could hinder them later on from making a good decision. But we encourage students to visit all types of colleges, make sure that you don't just look at the ticket price, always ask questions when it comes to, what could I be eligible for? It may be that the college has endowed funds that could provide, for a certain major, or maybe you're from a certain county in the state, and there's this big pot of money from a donor that could go and help your student afford a private education versus a public college. But I would always encourage the students to take the tours and ask for an estimate, and always compare, like look at what you're looking at. There's direct and indirect cost, and you want to look at the direct cost of attendance. We are required as financial aid offices to post the whole cost of attendance. So that's direct and indirect cost. But of course, direct cost is tuition, fees, food, and housing. And so that's what you want to encourage your students to look at. That ticket price may look a lot higher because we have to build in personal expenses, transportation, miscellaneous expenses. And so that can, depending on looking at different websites of different colleges, that can really scare some students, but just make them focus on what is the cost of a tuition, fees, food, and housing.
Thank you for that information. And there is a lot of stuff that you don't realize till you actually get in the throes, like you mentioned, the endowed scholarships and things like that. Lenata, from a public university perspective, what do you want to share with us?
Yeah, I think Audrey did a good job highlighting merit scholarships as well as the federal student aid estimator. I would also encourage individuals to tap into net price calculators. So I will say from a public standpoint, some public schools do not use a profile, so they will not provide estimates of federal aid until they actually get the students' ICER data from the federal student aid. So they may not have the same flexibility as a private institution to give you an estimate in hand when you're currently present, without having that FAFSA data. So from the Department of Ed. So their net price calculators might be your next best option to get some information, because it does require you to put a little bit of the data that might have been entered into the FAFSA application so that they can get some estimates about your SAI and so on and so forth. So that is another resource that I would encourage students to look into when they're trying to manage what their financial aid packages may be if they have not received them yet. I would also encourage students to be patient. Each university has a different timeline. And so I think often, just spoke with a parent a couple of days ago, she's already starting to receive financial aid packages from some of the institutions that her daughter applied to. And so based off of that, her assumption was NKU should be sending her that right now. And I had to explain to her, we're all on different timelines. We all use different systems as well. And if you're not familiar with how the financial aid system goes, in some regards, each university might be setting up a new system annually, and that can take time. And oftentimes they can't start testing that until they start getting the data from the federal student aid. So since the application is now live and we will be getting more ICERs in a higher volume, many of those schools will probably start hitting the ground running and start to try to get those packages ready for next academic year in hopes that they can get them out as soon as possible, but they could come at different times. One of the other things that I would encourage students to think about when they are weighing a college decision, it's it's much more than just the ticket price, right? It is an investment. Like I think a student needs to understand that it isn't a financial investment into their future. And so when they are going on tours and visits, yes, it's important to be asking those questions about how much do things cost, but I also think that it's important for students to be asking those questions about what are they getting beyond the cost. Because technically you're getting a degree in hopes that you're positioning yourself for future employment, future advancement, right? And so you really want to make sure whatever the price is that you're paying, the investment that you're putting yourself in those 4 or 5 years is actually going to bring first fruition an actual career that is helpful for you as an individual, for your community, and for your family. So I do think that students have to take that into consideration. And oftentimes I think students forget that. So it's great to attend the events that are fun, but I think it's also great to be contacting faculty members, asking academic advisors, really trying to get a deeper understanding as to what am I getting out of this investment that I'm about to make financially into this university.
Thank you. That was some very good information from both of you. And match and fit is so important. We hear kids a lot of times say, well, I'm going to X college because that's where my parents went, or, I'm going because my friend's going. And I know it's easy to get caught up in that, but it is so important, as you all said, to look at the actual college, take the tours and talk to the people on campus, because if it is not a match and fit for you, then it is probably not going to be a rewarding and fruitful 4 years or 2 years or whatever you choose to do. So switching gears just a
Let's see.
little bit. I'm sorry, Sandy. Yes.
Sorry, can I add
Yeah,
something real fast?
absolutely.
Because Audrey and Lenita both mentioned net price. And so people to understand what net price means, it is the college cost after financial aid pays. So that's what you need to look at when you're looking at costs. Because I know, like Audrey, I've worked at a private institution, and the sticker price can be scary. But you can't look at that big price. You need to look at the net price, the price that you're going to pay out of pocket after all the financial aid, the grants and scholarships, and if you want to take out a student loan, what will you pay then after that? So I just wanted to add that in.
Yes, I'm glad that you did. Thank you for clarifying that, because that is a very valid point. Sometimes just, like with lots of things in life, sticker shock can be scary, but that's not oftentimes the out of pocket. So appreciate that. Um, Switching gears, you've all mentioned FAFSA. We've talked about FAFSA. You mentioned the beta testing. Cassie, it's my understanding that KAA is participating in the beta testing. So what do you know about it so far?
Sure. So we were part of betas 2, 3, and 4, which were programs essentially to let Kentucky students test run the FAFSA, but it was not just a test run because it was their actual FAFSA. And so we were able to kind of open it up in stages. The first round, we were able to have about 300 students participate. The second round, they gave us up to 1,000 students. And then the third round, they kind of opened it up and said, as long as we don't, open it to the masses yet, we could go even bigger than that. And so we did that. We did our first beta 2 testing phase with an in-person
I have an
event.
idea of what you're wanting to do,
Um,
but
with a beta 2 event, in-person event in Frankfurt, October 17th, 16th and 17th, I think it was. That feels like a lifetime ago. And it was incredibly successful. And so our biggest takeaways were the form looks good. The functionality looks good. I think there were 87 people in attendance. We filed 87 FAFSAs. We completed 87 FAFSAs. And so there were no glitches so big that we could not succeed in getting it submitted. We did see some familiar glitches. So we did see some of the issues that we saw with the 24-25 FAFSA. However, nothing new. There was nothing new that we hadn't seen before, nothing that we couldn't figure out a workaround to. And so that went really well. Beta 3 was even smoother and better. And then beta 4, we've heard almost no issues coming through. As Audrey said just yesterday, the federal student aid, they announced that they have, as part of the expanded beta testing, they've now opened the 25-26 FAFSA to anyone who is ready to file it. There was a bit of a caveat that came from some of our national partners saying, we're not sure that our message is reschedule your FAFSA workshops for, this week, next week. We can still stay business as usual on the timeline we have set forth with the FAFSA workshops and things like that. But if you have those parents who have been chomping at the bit to get into the FAFSA, it's open. They can get in there and file it. Along with that message came a lot of information about the changes that have been made and the updates and the fixes based off of the reports from betas 1 through 4. And so the beta testing seems like it was a huge success and that they were able to then turn around and fix the issues that we saw not only in the 25-26 FAFSA, but also retroactively for the 24-25 FAFSA, so that if there's a student who wants to start in January and they're still going to file the 24-25, there are far fewer glitches there than we were seeing just a few weeks ago. So all good news. And I know there was this kind of collective breath holding to see, was it actually going to open December 1st? But I guess the answer to that is no, it opens now. So as of November 18th, the 25-26 FAFSA is essentially open to the masses.
Well, that's good to know. And, I just want to tell our folks that are with us today in the audience, if you have students who are trying to complete the FAFSA, and I know you do this, but encourage them to use their KAA outreach counselor or a financial aid representative from the college that they're interested in attending, because it is so easy to make a mistake that can cause lots of problems to try to fix, or it seems that way from my experience. So, just reach out to those folks that are there to support and assist. And while the FAFSA is easier, I guess now, as far as the application process than it was in years past, there's still things that, even with my experience in this line of work for several years, I still get a little bit nervous about. And I really appreciate the fact to have a KAA outreach person or a college financial aid person with me helping if I'm supporting students in that role. So thank you for that update. When students complete the FAFSA, we're all interested in that final award notification from the colleges that they're interested in. So we know that some of the terminology changed with some of the FAFSA updates. And I think now it's award notification that the students are, I'm sorry, did I call it wrong?
Aid offer.
Aid offer. I knew I was going to do that. Sorry, aid
They
offer.
changed it like 5 different times, so you're
Yeah,
fine.
okay.
Everything's
So
fine.
aid offer, and I even wrote it down and still messed it up. But so interested in how you all are supporting students and families in interpreting those aid offers. And because I know that there's a lot on there. You've got scholarships and you've got Pell Grants and different things. So as financial aid directors, how are you helping students and families understand this? So we're going to start with Lenida, and then we'll move to Audrey, and then Sandy, if you want to add anything. But then Autumn, I also want to ask if you are getting students asking you about these things too. So kind of guess this is one question that we want everybody to chime in on. So Lenida, if you'll go ahead and start us off.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one note that I will give is that the aid offers can look different depending on the institution. And so I think in some regards that can be part of the confusion, because some individuals might really pull out certain points very big, and then other aspects of that information might be a little bit smaller, and so people might miss it. The biggest tip that I would give someone is you're really looking at, very much like we've all talked about, is trying to get down to your net price, or how we refer to it as NKU, your out-of-pocket cost, right? How much would I be responsible for paying after all of my aid has been applied? And I think what students really need to look at is their cost. So when you get your aid offers at this point, many of the costs, depending on the institution, could be estimated. So with us, we will not get our final tuition and fees for 25, 26 until the end of our spring semester. So we will start sending out aid offers in the early spring, but it will have an estimated tuition and fee as well as an estimated room and board until those costs are finalized, and then we'll send updated information at that point. So when you're looking at that, also taking into that mindset of this cost could go up a little bit. Do I have enough aid to cover it? And then I do think you really need to be evaluating what aid is coming to me. And I think that that is looking at all of your sources. So yes, aid offers are typically going to include your federal information, your state information, and institutional specific aid that you are being offered. But you might know of aid that's not listed on that. So take that time to actually include that in your calculation so that you really are truly getting to that out-of-pocket cost that you would be responsible for. I also think when you're looking at aid offers from various institutions, you really have to do the math in regards to seeing how far each dollar goes depending at the institution, right? It goes without saying in some regards, at a public school, your dollar will go further. But if you're looking at a private school, you also could definitely do that calculation and see this scholarship is coming in higher. Does it really bring my out-of-pocket cost to a cost that might be affordable for me and my family? Again, weighing the benefit of that financial investment at that institution for you long term. And so I think those are some of the elements that I really try to break down, for students and parents in that regards when I'm talking to them about their aid offer. And then it becomes a conversation of, if you do have a remaining amount left, have we considered all aid that's been on the table? There is becoming a newer, and I don't even know if it's newer or if it's just more prevalent, where individuals are not wanting to consider federal loans. And so a conversation for some individuals is, I don't have any other aid coming from anywhere else, but I don't want to consider loans. And so our conversations with those students really turns into smart borrowing conversations, right? Because if this is the institution that you want to go into and you have a balance that could be covered by one or both of those loans, for us, the conversation becomes, could this be a responsible investment for you to do right now? And then really for that year, what are you doing to find additional sources to fund your college for the next few years that doesn't involve you taking out a loan? So it really becomes, at that point in my regards, a conversation about financial literacy and smart borrowing for the student.
Perfect. Thank you, Audrey.
I think something to encourage students and families to talk with financial aid offices. Not only what are the results for your freshman year, but is this a affordable option for all 4 or 5 years that you plan to be at the school, or 2 years if they choose a community college? But oftentimes students, no matter how many times they're told in high school, you're going to have to fill this FAFSA out every year. Well, if the FAFSA results differ because of tax information every year, then the aid offer can fluctuate from year to year. And so I think that's kind of just put on the back burner, and everybody focuses on freshman year, but they forget, oh, I'm going to have to pay for school my sophomore, junior, and senior year also. And sometimes it's in their favor that their sophomore, junior, and senior year look better than the freshman year. But just having that honest conversation of, when students say, is this what I'm going to get every year? We can assure them based on their GPA, what they're going to have in their merit aid, but we can't promise them the Pell Grant. We can't promise them the CAP and KTG grant in the state. Other than, if things don't change, you should have around the same aid offer, but we would never want to mislead or promise them something that we can't say for sure. So that's something I would encourage. Also, I would encourage students to ask the question, is this aid offer, or is this merit scholarship renewable? Is it just for 1 year? Is the amount that you tell us on this postcard, oh, you're getting 40,000, was that spread out into 4 years and contingent upon a GPA? Or do you get to have a pot of 40,000 and you use it how you see fit? So there's a lot of questions that you should ask prior to making your final decision. I will say that there is a transparency initiative, a college cost transparency initiative across the US. There's probably over 100 schools, maybe. There's over 600 schools that have committed to making the cost of college on paper, an aid offer, very easy to read. There's kind of criteria that everybody has agreed to follow. And I know for Lindsay Wilson, we haven't signed the agreement, but ours reflects what is suggested. So you're going to see that more and more, that the aid offers are going to try. There's an effort nationwide to try to make the aid offers a little bit less confusing. But always, like Lenata said, make sure students are looking at the entire offer. The loans might be down at the bottom, and a student sees a zero out-of-pocket cost. Make sure that they look over the aid offer to make sure there are no loans. And if there are, loans ultimately is a part of financial aid, and it does help you get that education that you need and you want. And so they have to weigh their options. Is it worth borrowing for this school, or is it worth, looking for other resources? But definitely encourage your students to ask those questions before they make the commitment. Also, transferring. If a student says, oh, I want to stay at this college for 1 year and then I'm going to transfer, make sure if they have that plan, they think about asking the next college, what does your transfer scholarships look like? Because what they offered you as a freshman is going to be different than what is offered as a transfer student. So it may be better to just go ahead and go straight to that final destination school versus, well, let me stay home, close to home for a year and then transfer. You might forfeit a lot of money that way. So that's something to look at.
Thank you. Sandy, did you want to add anything else? I know we've got some questions for you specifically to KCTCS coming up, but if you have anything else you want to add, we'd certainly welcome it.
Sure. And so the other thing I would encourage families to look at is what they call campus-based aid. Campus-based aid includes SEOG and work study. It is only good at the school that awards it. So if you have an offer from Lindsay Wilson and one from NKU, one might have SEOG on it and the other may not. And so they need to know that offer for SEOG or work study is only good at that school. So it's not portable like Pell Grant or the Cap and Keys money, and KTG in the case of a private institution. The other thing that I have done, you talked about financial literacy a little bit, Lenita did, is to talk about responsible borrowing is good debt and bad debt. I like to talk to families about good debt and bad debt. So the difference between good debt and bad debt, of course, is that with good debt, things appreciate over time. A college education appreciates over time. How a house, a home appreciates over time. Bad debt is a car, and people drop $30,000 on a car sometimes every 4 years, and they don't blink an eye with it. A college education is well worth more than that car, because that car, when they drive it off the lot, is worth a lot less money, at least 10% drop as soon as they drive it off the lot. So we go into that. And one other thing really quickly that, in this, you all may want to incorporate this in your high schools, is I work with some Catholic high schools in Louisville, and one of them happens to do a financial aid comparison letter day. And so the students will bring in all their offer letters, and they will sit down, and I have participated with them on this, and we look over each offer letter and we try to explain, the apples and oranges, because some of them look very different. Like Audrey said, a lot of schools have signed on to the college cost transparency and the financial aid notification or the offer letter looking the same, but there's still schools out there that aren't. So you might want to consider that in your school if you have the opportunity. It's very
Perfect.
successful.
Thank you so much. And Autumn, really quickly, because we're kind of running a little bit behind time, not because of anything that we've done. There's just been some great conversation, and I'm tickled to death for that. But is there anything that you want to add from a secondary school perspective to support students in understanding?
Yeah, I would just say making sure that students are aware of all the options that are available to them. I'm glad you said work study at the very end, because that was the one thing I wanted to touch on, was making sure that if students are eligible to do that, that they take advantage of it. And understanding what the terms are for their scholarship. Was it a 1-year term scholarship? Was it for the life of while you're in a post-secondary education system? And comparing the financial aid letters, that is something that I do with the families too. Once a student has received a notification of their aid award, we come in, we look at it so that they understand exactly what the terms are. Even if it shows $0 out of pocket, is that including loans also? And are you okay with taking those out? So just making sure that our families are aware and that they understand of the financial obligation is a huge part of them successfully transitioning to that post-secondary institution.
Thank you. And I think one key thing to always remember is that you have people that are here to help you and support you. So if you don't feel comfortable sharing these aid notifications and sitting down with a student and helping them determine and compare, then there are folks at the college level, the KAA folks, they're all there willing to help. And you know, our Kentucky Career Coach is another great asset that are in a lot of schools. So there are people out here that are willing to help. So do not be afraid or hesitant to seek out those folks. Switching gears just a little bit, I think this is a very important thing that I want to make sure that we talk about today. KCTCS is an affordable option for students to earn a 2-year degree, and a lot of times, you know, students will start maybe at the KCTCS schools and transfer to a 4-year, which is certainly a great option for a lot of folks. And there are work-ready scholarships that are administered by KAA that are available at lots of colleges and universities throughout the state, but a lot of kids or students, excuse me, are taking advantage of the Work Ready scholarship through KCTCS specifically. So, Sandra, can you speak a little bit about the opportunities that students have to use that Work Ready scholarship to earn up to an associate degree at no cost? Because we are trying to find the most affordable option.
Right.
And there are lots of help, or lots of help is available for students in Kentucky.
Yeah, so we are very lucky in the state of Kentucky, and our Work Ready Scholarship Program is a great opportunity for students who want to go in those, we're seeking a credential in a high wage, demanding field, not necessarily even a, you know, a 4-year degree, but like anything that would get them ready for work right away. HVAC, electrical, plumbing, several line workers. There's so many programs out there that students can go straight to work, and they don't want to invest in a 4-year degree, and that's all right. We need those people. The scholarship is what they call last dollar. The Work Ready is a last dollar resort. So what happens is if the student fills out the FAFSA and they're eligible for Pell Grant, that pays first, and then Work Ready will chip in and pay the rest. And it gives them up to $400 annually to help with their mandatory fees as well. So they can virtually come out of school with no cost at all. They may have to pay some money for books, and course specific fees, but overall it pays the majority of their cost at KCTCS. And some other schools have Work Ready programs too, but at KCTCS it's probably the most affordable option. And
Perfect.
there's some of them that are the associate degrees as well.
Great. Now, when a student comes in, you said it's a last dollar, but if they're not aware of the Work Ready, is that something that's automatically applied, and you all tell them if they fall into one of these degrees?
So yeah, so definitely the admissions workers, recruiters, financial aid teams will tell each of the colleges will talk to them about Work Ready scholarships. Of course, KAA does a great job doing the outreach at the high schools, as well as when us in financial aid do the workshops that we do. We talk about the same programs, and we also let parents know that they can qualify for Work Ready scholarships, possibly if they wanted to go back to school. So yeah, they work really hard with the students to get them information about the programs. And if somebody's enrolling in the Work Ready, a Work Ready field, a Work Ready program, they definitely promote it that way and give them guidance and help them fill out the information.
Perfect. Well, I know it truly is a partnership effort, and this has been something that has been a key part of the work that the Kentucky Advising Academy has done throughout its inception, is utilizing partnerships at the state level, district level, and it works. Partnerships work for all pieces. So just like KAA is a wonderful partnership for the universities as well, and internally within the schools, you have to have your partnerships. So appreciate all of that information. And as you all know, we had a lot of great information shared. And I do want to point out a couple of things Autumn dropped in the chat, some really good, safe scholarship search engines. So students that are looking for additional scholarship opportunities, you can't forget those, as well as, the local scholarship opportunities and things like that. So those would not necessarily be reflected in the aid packages from the schools. I think there is a question in the chat. There is a student who wants to go into a dental hygiene program. She will have to take prerequisites prior to applying. With that being said, can she apply for the Work Ready Scholarship prior to being admitted to the dental hygiene program?
As long as it's listed as a work-ready program, they can apply for it. And the admissions folks at the school or the financial aid office at the school can tell you exactly what you need to be enrolled in order to qualify for the work-ready scholarship.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, before we move into the final part of our webinar today and we share some resources and some information about a grant opportunity, I want to give our panelists an opportunity to just share anything else that they may want to share with folks that may not have come out in the questions. So does anybody have anything that they want to add before we switch gears here? Cassie?
I just wanted to encourage everyone, we've been saying on here over and over, contact your financial aid offices, contact your KAA outreach counselors. And I just want to be clear, we're saying that to every person in the state. We're saying that to every school counselor. We're saying that to every student, parent, everybody. And so the other little asterisk next to that is also be patient with your KAA outreach counselors and your financial aid officers, because this time of year, they're all inundated with questions and people wanting to help. And I was in the field for 12 years, and I remember thinking like, man, this mom thinks that she's the only person I help and that I have 2 hours a day to talk to her about all of her, and I did it. And I did it happily, but I do want, there to be kind of a disclaimer that we are, everyone on this call, all of the panel of experts is serving everyone in the state. And so these offices and these people can get really inundated. And so be patient. And there's a very, very, very good chance that you're not going to lose out on aid waiting for an outreach counselor or financial aid counselor to call you back. So be patient with us and we will get back to you. We will help you. That's what we're here for. But just know that you have to wait for a lot of people in life, and financial aid experts are not an exception.
Absolutely. Anything else before we switch gears?
Yes, I'd like to mention unusual and special circumstances, because we haven't touched on that at all. But if anybody has a student that has an unusual or special circumstance, they really should contact the school which they plan to enroll to talk about that, because there's specific guidelines that they will give you. So unusual or special, unusual homelessness, or a grandparent raising a child, those kinds of things. Special circumstances also include like a loss of employment or high medical or dental expenses that the student has paid out of pocket or the family has paid out of pocket. Contact the financial aid administrator at your school, because they are there to help you with that. And if they just don't know where to contact, the KAA outreach person will tell them what to do and help them with it.
Thank you for bringing that up. I did mean to mention that because that is so vitally important. And we know that circumstances change. So appreciate that. We are going to really quickly, I think we have about 8 minutes left, and there's a couple of things that I truly, truly want to share with you all before we end our time here. So we are going to unpin our panelists, and then I'm going to share my screen again and share with you a couple of resources that you can also utilize within your schools, as well as share about a post-secondary grant opportunity. We have several resources that you can use to support students in paying for college. They are on our toolkit, Start Here guides that have lots of links to various reputable resources within Kentucky. A lot of your KAA resources are linked here. And then we also have quick guide PDFs that are one-page documents that you can print out and provide to your students and families. So all of this is linked on our toolkit. Thank you all so much for joining us. We know this is a very important topic and probably could do multiple webinars covering financial aid and how to support students and families in paying for college. So I appreciate you spending an hour with us. Again, we didn't get to share all the resources from KAA, but we will certainly do that in a follow-up email, as well as share the slide deck and the information from the panelists. So appreciate you all. Have a great rest of the day.